Hello, everyone. Welcome to week three of this product management program. We'll be talking about concept development and prototyping. Now, the first stage of concept development is problem ideation and solution. In week two, we touched on user research, market research, and competitive analysis, and that's just part of problem ideation. Now, usually problem ideation is not the sole responsibility of the product manager. Rather, it involves the whole team. However, it is the product manager's responsibility to gather ideas and connect these ideas to business objective. And these ideas could come in the form of company initiatives. So the company already has initiative that they are trying to achieve with the product, such as increase revenue growth, markets, maybe market adoption, um, customer satisfaction. These are company initiatives, right? Now you can get ideas from this company initiative. You can get ideas from future requests that your existing users will share. Maybe they're experiencing a problem on your product, or they're just something they would like to see. Maybe you launched a feature and they're telling you. Sometimes you find that you launch one feature and your users are already telling you that please do this feature next. You get ideas from there, or from internal external feedback. Internal feedback being your core product team, or your colleagues who work at your company with you. They can give you feedback on how you can improve the product, or features that they also would like to see if they are users of your product. Now, ideas generated excuse me, ideas generated from these sources are collated and documented on a product backlog. We'll address what a product backlog is next week. Now, product ideation is a customer centric approach which involves translating user feedback into actionable feedback that can improve or contribute to the product. It's a customer centric approach in the sense that it builds on feedback from customer or user research. Now, there are 5 steps in problem ideation. And like I said, gathering feedback, which is user research, is step one. We've addressed how to conduct user research. Now, whether it is done by conducting quantitative or qualitative user research, codec or collecting feedback in app or via other communication channels, or even through social listening, what's important is that you are listening to your users, you are noting their complaints or feedback regarding their products, and you are implementing these solutions that you come up with. For new products, crafting the right questions to include on your forms or to be asked during the user interview is very crucial because the responses inform your product development. Now, a way to conceptualize the right questions to ask is to empathize with your users' problems. What this means is that you want to think about how your users are facing, or their frustrations with the problems that they are experiencing, and you have to empathize deeply with these frustrations so that you're able to design solutions that will be beneficial to them, or even craft, not even designing at this point, crafting user questions that will be very beneficial to them. A way to conceptualize the right questions to ask is to empathize with users problems, and you can do this by joining online groups or forums in which your target users actively engage. This can be helpful in providing users pinpoints. Also, observing conversations on social media surrounding the topics associated with your product is key. For example, if your product is a fintech product, observing how your target audience discusses finance related topics and what their frustrations are can give you deep insights into the problems that they face, and how you can uncover the right questions to ask. But you also don't want to ask leading questions. You shouldn't be posing your product as the solution to your user's problem on when you are conducting user interview or user research. You should be asking them about their questions, and sometimes if you ask the right questions, your users will take the initiative and tell you how they believe their problems can be solved. If they are the problem they are facing is frustration with, let's say, lack of a naira card that can, or lack of a virtual card or a card that can help them do make dollar purchases, right, if they fit into the Nigerian market. Understanding their frustration can let you know that a solution to this is a virtual dollar card. So You have to ask the right questions, but be careful not to include your product as the solution so that users are not biased when they are giving you feedback. Alternatively, if you fit into the market and target audience of your product, that means you'll be able to empathize with your users' problems, and that sort of simplifies the process of coming up with relevant questions because you deeply understand their problems and their frustrations, and you are able to craft questions that uncover these frustrations and that will give you insights into how to solve them. You might even have an idea of how to solve them already, especially if you fit into your target audience and your target market, but it's still helpful to conduct user research to validate whatever solution you think might be the solution to solving your users' problems. Now, like I said earlier, don't suggest your product as a solution to users' problems. Ask them questions that will make them tell you about their frustrations. Step two is to collate data gotten from users. Now you've done your user research, you've done your market research. Based on the feedback that you've gotten, you already have a plethora of ideas. You have a long list of ideas. Maybe not a long list, but you have a list of ideas that you think will work for your product. At this stage, your job is to translate this feedback into actionable steps. How do you do that? For example, let's say your product is a fintech product, and while conducting user research for a virtual card feature, one of your users informs you that their biggest frustration is being unable to pay for Apple Music with most Nigerian cards. Because this is a problem peculiar to the Nigerian market, you immediately understand that it's only a dollar card that can solve your user's problem, which means automatically you know that your product has to have a dollar card offering. This is a way to draw actionable steps from data collected. Data can also be collected from internal sources, that is, the people within your company, but they have to fit into your target market and audience. You cannot, and they have to use your product. You cannot ask someone about a feature or a product that they are not using, right? You can't ask them feedback. Or they have to be people who use, maybe it's an MVP, they have to have used a competing product so that they can give you relevant feedback. Now, step three is you have to prioritize your features. If you did step one and two already, you have a long list of features which will already go on the backlog. What you should do at this step is to match each feature idea against company goals and product vision. Remember, your product vision is always top of mind as a product manager, and then you select the ideas that closely align with your product vision and your company goals. Your product vision is static, it doesn't change. And so, whatever initiative, whatever future you are launching, constantly has to align with your product vision. If, for example, you are working at a health tech and your product vision is to deliver affordable healthcare to women, when you are considering features that you want to launch, even if they are paid feature, you have to consider the fact that they have to be affordable. You cannot price premium pricing because your product vision is affordable healthcare technology service to women. So this is a way to have product vision top of mind always. Now you match your future idea against company goals. Company goals could look like revenue increase, customer satisfaction, market acquisition. These are company initiatives that your company will usually have. And so when you are matching your future idea, you have to consider how your ideas align with company goals. Do they help you? It doesn't have to help you achieve each company goal. Your company might have maybe five or six goals. If your future ideas align with one or two, and it aligns with the product vision, then that is a good way to select that feature to be implemented. Now, implementing prioritization techniques is also beneficial to decision making at this stage. What this means is once you already have matched your feature and you've selected the features that match, or the ideas, they're not feature yet. You've selected the ideas that matches your company goals and your product vision using prioritization technique, which we'll cover next week. You you further are able to make your decision. Now, implementation of selected ideas. Now you have a list of features. You've prioritized the ones that will go on your MVP or the ones that you'll be launching now. You now document these features on your MVP and hand over you document these features on your PRD, and you hand over the PRD to design and engineering team to implement, after which quality assurance testing of the product is done. QA testing just ensures that you are releasing a bug-free product to your users. You are ensuring that the features that have been implemented or the user journey that have been implemented matches what was documented. And once you ensure all of that, you now conduct QA, right? Now, if you have managerial stakeholders, which you most likely do if you work at a startup, this will be the stage to loop them in and update them on task progression. You have to also understand how to report to stakeholders and how to manage them. We'll address stakeholder management in session 2. And then step 5 is to launch your product. You've done QA, you've done your user research, you've gathered your collated your data, you've prioritized your data, sorry, you've prioritized your ideas, you've implemented the ones that you prioritize, and now you've done QA and now you're about to launch your product. This is where you close the feedback loop. So these 5-step process are sort of a loop that you consistently go through as a product manager develop during the product development stage. Right, you started this process speaking to customers, and you will end it informing customers of the new features or changes coming to the product. Usually, marketing is the responsible party here, so you might not necessarily be leading this initiative of communicating with your with your customers. However, you will work closely because you know the product very well, and remember that you are the one advocating for the product. You are the subject matter expert when it comes to your product. You have to work closely with marketing so that you can inform their launch materials, their product copies that will be used to communicate the future product release for your users. Usually, marketing will work on these materials and you just go over them to ensure that what is being said is what the product is doing, and it is the product manager who is in charge of this. Now, once users begin to use your product, you collate your feedback, which will be used for product optimization, and that kickstarts the entire process from loop step 1. So this is why I say it's a loop. So this is just a pictorial representation of what the problem ideation 5-step process loop looks like. You gather feedback, you collate feedback, you prioritize your features, you comment implementation, and you launch your products. Now, let's address assumption mapping. Assumption mapping is an exercise in which a product team explores any assumptions they believe a user will have about a new product's feasibility, desirability, and viability. So, this is an exercise that usually will come at step 3. While you have collated your data and you are looking at it and you're trying to prioritize your map, you're trying to align your product vision and your company goals with your ideas. Once you've done that and you've prioritized features, you start to do something called assumption mapping. Now, this is where you now explore any assumption you feel like your user will have, and when you've documented assumption mapping, you document it on your priority. But for now, you just think of it as conducting a risk assessment on your user based on how feasible, desirable, or viable you think they will find your product. Feasibility assumptions determine whether the team has enough resources to develop a solution and assesses whether any legal or technical blockers will exist on the user side of the product. Essentially, the product team is assessing whether they have the relevant technical resource. So, if you say your products will be released on the web, do you have a web developer? So, you assume that you have a web developer. If you don't, this is be a place to fill that gap and let management know that you need a web developer. You assume that, oh, if we have a set of tech stack that we want to launch this product on, this is not necessarily, you don't have to know what tech stack that your company is using. You sync with the engineering manager and you determine, do we have the developers that know how to use the tech stack that the company is using. If you don't, then this would be a place to hire. And so you just assess the feasibility of these features and how implementing these features, how feasible will it be to implement this set of ideas that you have selected, right? Then Also, are there legal impediments, so things such as compliance? Do you have to cater to compliance? Do you have to consider any legal restrictions that might affect your product going live in your market? If there are, this would be a time to sync with your legal team and say, we're trying to launch this product, but we've noticed that there is a compliance blocker and we need your efforts in resolving this. So this is why feasibility assumption is important. You don't want to get to the end of your product development process and then you realize that you actually should have looked in legal early enough. Hence, the assumption here is that you have competent technical talent and that no legal blockers exist when launching a product. And if you identify that you do, this would be a time to attempt to resolve it with your stakeholders. As desirability assumptions focuses on how appealing your solution is to the users. It aims to assess the preference or delight that you anticipate your users will derive from using your product. Here, the assumption is that users will prefer to use your product as a solution to their problems. And so this is just considering user experience. But if you did your user research properly, um, and you've decided on your target audience and you already know you're already aligned with your designers on branding, desirability assumptions is usually very easy to assume. It's just easy to assume if once you're aligned on the user experience section of things, it's easy to assume it's easy to assume that your users will delight in your product and that they will prefer your product. Now, viability assumptions assesses whether the product will significantly contribute to the company's success and how it will do so. Here, the assumption is that users will be willing to pay for the product if your company goal is revenue, if one of the company initiative is revenue growth and this feature is going to be a paid feature, you now assume that users will be willing to pay for the product. Or if your product is a new of its kind product launching in your market, your assumption here will be that the market will be receptive to the product. So viability assumptions just you assuming that the things that you need your product to do, that users will experience them the way you assume they will experience them. Now, when writing assumptions, you will write these assumptions on your PRD, and I will do a practical example during our live class on how to write assumptions. Now, combined with prioritization frameworks, assumption mapping helps the product team move beyond step three. Like I said earlier, it helps the product team move beyond step three of the product ideation process. That is, the product team wages every idea against the desirability, visibility, and viability framework before further determining selected features. Now, when conducting assumption mapping, it is important to collaborate with the relevant stakeholders that align with each framework. For example, when attempting to MVP ideas for your viability, you have to collaborate with key business stakeholders since you're more thinking about the business side of things. If you are evaluating feasibility, you have to align with the developers or marketers or designers for desirability. I just want to also bring us back to the beginning when I mentioned during the introduction to product management that your product management function sits at the intersection of technology, user experience, and business. And if you look at this desirability, viability, and feasibility framework, you see how it is also grouped around this concept. So now we'll go to writing a customer problem statement.